Spinning around. There we go. And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday stream with the Notion Nerds. And we have our guest, Layla, ClickUp consultant. For those of you just joining us that haven't seen us before, John and I both currently use Notion, but we may be moving to ClickUp. We'll probably discuss it a little bit further in the stream.
We're going to leave now. They're like, right, no, that's it. And goodbye. Notion Nerds, dead. They are dead forever.
Yeah. So Layla, before we start talking, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone that doesn't already know you?
Yeah, my name is Layla. I am not a Notion nerd, but I am a ClickUp nerd. And I think just collectively a nerd. So we've got some overlap there. And I'm a vetted ClickUp consultant, but I more so focus on the process side of things. And I'm just excited to talk about all things process and systems, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter what software you're using, the systems are still pretty much the same.
Yeah, agreed. Roxana, good to see you. Esme, good to see you. Homesick, you were really early. Like I wasn't even in StreamYard when I saw your comment. I was like, you posted at 6 o'clock? But yeah, good to see you all. Sarah, good to see you. Gail, good to see you all. Wow, loads of people. Right. So first things first. I'll go to Layla and John, both of you. My personal question is, what do you see the overlap between ClickUp and Notion? Where is there an overlap? What would you use them for? What wouldn't you use them for? We'll go Layla first.
Okay, so overlap. They both have cloud-based writing. They both could track tasks, and they're both based on the cloud. What do you think, Jonathan?
I like that.
Oh, come on. That was so like on the fence there. Come on.
I mean, I view them as so different. I think the things that are overlaps, right, are afterthoughts in ClickUp. And the things that, like task management Notion is kind of a manipulation of what Notion can do. And docs in ClickUp are kind of like, they've even been added super late. They're a stretch of what ClickUp can do. So I think the overlap is really on the fringe and not the core tools themselves. Although I guess you could say they both help you manage getting things done, but they're so different in how they do that. So I
agree. I think me and Danny have been discussing this for ages. Like, you can do everything in Notion, and you could do everything in Notion in ClickUp.
Yep.
But whether you should is depending on what you need.
Yeah.
And it depends on how you personally work, how you like to work. And I think that sums it up for me.
So when it comes to, I assume you've explored ClickUp, Layla. How much have you explored it?
Notion, you mean, or ClickUp? Because ClickUp I have explored once.
Notion, sorry. How much have you explored Notion? John, shut up.
It's okay. It's Sunday.
John's getting relegated.
So Notion, I actually looked into it back when I was actually first discovered ClickUp. So about Jonathan.
You're composing yourself, John. So, Layla, you ClickUp consultant, how much have you explored ClickUp?
Once or twice.
Just a few times, I just made it up as I go along,
Well, I think
careful, John. I will remove you.
I know you will.
I think much like you guys, I explored a lot of tools. I specialized in ClickUp very reluctantly because I was always on the process and system side of things. I started my business thinking about workflows and like your client experience. And so for the longest time, I refused to specialize in any tool because I thought that would bias me too much. So I was investigating Notion really heavily about a year into my business. So it was a few years back now. And when I was using it, I really was comparing it a lot to Coda and Google Docs. I was not comparing it at all to Asana, Trello, and ClickUp and Rike, where I was looking at task management. I was always looking at them as separate things. So I haven't done a whole lot more recently with Notion. I did investigate a bit in prep for this. But when I saw that there was no real integrations available and that it seemed like very much an Evernote thing at the time, I kind of was turned off. Honestly, sorry,
John. I know John's got a couple of words he would like to add to that, wouldn't you, John?
I gotta get back up now.
was that the chair, or is that you falling off? Or
no, that was me. That was the chair. I moved the chair down.
I'm loving the camera view, John.
To fix it a bit more, but it's fine for now. We're live. I can't be bothered. There are unofficial.
Homesick, you better moan at him. You moaned at me.
Well, Homesick said he liked my camera angle. So, Anyway, there are unofficial automations with Zapier. I got some moaning to do about ClickUps, to be quite honest, because they are annoying. I have to be on the highest plan. Well, one down from enterprise. I don't ever class enterprise as a high plan to be able to use any conditions
in the in-app automations.
In the in-app automation. Okay, fine. Zapier is amazing, but we don't. That's Zapier being amazing.
Yeah.
Shh. Notion can do Zapier too, unofficially. It's unofficial.
Well, the thing with ClickUp is it's also got integromat. And I feel like that's the game changer on the free. If you're trying to do free automations in ClickUp, integromat is like Zapier's, cousin, but so much better. And the team at integromat actually uses ClickUp. So the connection points are a lot more powerful. And the free plan is super awesome. I can't rave enough about integromat. So just going to put that out there.
I'm going to look that up now. No. I have seen it. It's been on the fringe. I've been a Zapier guy. So
I was as well. But if you switch to Team ClickUp, you're probably going to discover integromat and just completely fall in love. That is a YouTube rabbit hole worth falling down. The things people build with this. It is, you guys, you would lose whole weeks in how fun it would be to play with.
Like, I have lost an entire week already looking at all of your videos and other consultants just to figure out all of the stuff and how awesome ClickUp is. I don't want to admit that, but it is really good for project and task management.
I was going to say, is there going to be a caveat on the end of that one?
Yeah, I cannot enjoy that. There's just these few. Yes, I am very excited to see this. I might just shut up so we can get to that point.
Oh no, we can carry on. I mean, Layla's still got to share her screen, whichever one she's going to go with. So when it comes to API integrations and the rest of it, I personally haven't used many of them anyway, just in general. That's Notion, ClickUp, or anything. And the big thing that I would go straight to first, or that I went to first when exploring ClickUp, was calendar going backwards and forwards. Is that the most common use, do you think, for an API and integration type thing, or is it something else?
No, I wouldn't say in ClickUp. You mean?
Yeah.
So ClickUp now has a native integration to shoot things into your Google Calendar. And just, I think a few days ago, and that's why I'm working on a video this weekend and Monday on it, it now goes the other way as well. So
does it?
Yeah, check that email. Newest release, just a few days in here. That's what I'll actually show you. I pulled it in.
That was something I was going to complain about. Complain about that. Then you just it's just coming.
Yeah, I've got like 30 people who have asked for a video on it. And I'm like, wait, there's something coming. And now I can finally say what.
I think I have to give ClickUp a lot of respect. Even if I don't eventually switch, they at least tell us you get so many updates. And it's so clear what they're working on. Notion should learn a lot from that as a business. Yeah. I mean, even from mine and Danny's perspective, we still don't know everything, even though we are more privy to know some extra stuff as I'm calling it pros, as ambassadors. We do some things, but it's just like every time I open my email, it's just like ClickUp email.
Yeah.
Stop it.
And something else when it comes to the transparency, Sarah's just put it in chat. Like, transparency is next level. You can, if you have a question about something with ClickUp, you can obviously email them or whatever. But if you want to know if it's a future feature they're working on, you can see it straight away. If it's pending, how many people? It's almost like a Reddit thread of request features.
It's so good.
You know what's going on. There's no, is it coming out? Is it not coming out? Are we going to wait a whole year for the timeline view? Notion.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so you know what to expect from ClickUp. There's very little hidden from what I've seen.
Yeah.
I would add, just to be devil's advocate here, because I don't think anything's perfect. With ClickUp, I feel like there's an initial hatred that everyone has when they experience it. And then they fall in love. And then once you get to the advanced side of things, there are some things where you start to feel like, oh, come on. And one of those is actually, I think right now, their roadmap. When I was doing more just general tech stack recommendations, I always looked at a transparent roadmap. And ClickUp, like you said, uses that canny board where they can show what's in progress, what's a bug, what's a hot fix. The problem is it's so community-based that their product managers can't maintain it. So it's kind of chaotic versus a lot of teams, they have a Trello board for their product roadmap where they can upvote and downvote. So it's kind of organized. With ClickUp, since anyone can submit a feature request, there is 15 different ones that say, clear all from tray. I was looking for that this morning. 3 different ones I think I found for requesting to clear your tray in one click. But since they're not combined, it gets to be kind of messy. And it kind of throws off, I think, all the predictions you can sometimes have in terms of the long-term roadmap. So,
yeah. That was something I was actually going to bring up because I was looking for a couple of features and I was just scrolling down the list to see what's going on. And I started to seeing repeat things and I was like, okay, there's a lot of requests, but how many of these are duplicates and how, I have no idea how they work around it on their end because it could be pending on one, but then they've got 4 others that aren't pending and they're getting upvotes. And yeah, when it comes to the frequency of updates, I've seen a couple of people in communities with ClickUp. The more updates, the more bugs that seem to appear.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a 1-1 ratio, or is it they focus on updates and not the bugs? Like what's your experience with that, with the updates?
If you were to look back 3 months, I think people would be scared of ClickUp because of the number of bugs. They were so fast and furious on new feature development. They tried a few different things internally. Like you can hear some of the stories and posts that they've made about how they've changed their team organization to have more of a bug fix group, but they've changed it once more to kind of mix it and mingle it. I would say they've gotten better about the number of bugs that come up with updates. But generally speaking, an update's every week. There's going to be a new bug every week. And usually by the second week after a release, the bugs are fixed for the new bugs that came out in that release, if that makes sense.
That is not like Notion, because Notion's bugs, there are bugs that have still been there since I started using it that haven't been fixed.
Well, it took them, 7 months to fix the scroll bar on Windows?
Yeah. I tell you what, if ClickUp release an actual app, I'll be happy.
I think it's coming. I think it's coming this month. My bet would be they're having a level up event. Actually, I have very good reason to believe this is just my hunch. I'm not giving away any secrets here, but they have a level up event because every SaaS company needs to have a productivity conference now. Don't ask me why. Huh? You going? Well, they have put in their agenda that a sexy new mobile app, calendar, a template library, a few other things are going to be in the new version and going to be announced during the summit, but then they removed it from the agenda. So I have a feeling the surprise announcement that they're going to have during that summit is announcing either the release or the date of the release for those features. But now they want it to be a surprise, yet they already put it on the agenda and then they removed it.
I saw that. I thought I just read it somewhere else, but now you said that, I'm like, yes, I did see that. I'm not going mad.
We're ruining their surprise, but oh well.
Well, I think anyone that's on this stream are like true fans of ClickUp or Notion. Oh yeah, so much to think about. I mean, you can share your screen whenever
Sure.
you're comfortable. One thing that I have noticed, I'm going to go back to the integration type thing. When it comes to bringing it in, I don't know whether the two-way that's a recent update that you mentioned is going to potentially solve this or change this, but previously you had to use a Zap when something went into Google Calendar to go to ClickUp.
That is what was fixed in the recent release.
Right. Okay. And then does it bring in that time as well? Because previously, whenever I did it backwards and forwards, it never had the time of the event. It always had the date, but it never always had the time.
I have it on my screen right now if you want to show it.
Yeah, I did.
I was
just
testing it. So this is the new release that I'm just playing with this morning, and I wanted to play with it so that way we could all look at it. But I put a time blocked calendar in here rather than this is not my actual life, but it's pulling in my entire calendar. I think I even have the calendar up here, where we can see kind of the original version of it. And then it pulls in over here with all of the details in it. So yeah, it pulls in times and everything else.
Oh,
nice. So I previously didn't time block or didn't track time because of the inconvenience. I found it an inconvenience or a struggle to get it done, because I tried using Google Calendar, but I didn't like having to go from Google Calendar to whatever I was using. Most of the time it was Notion, and go backwards and forwards. Just was it annoying. And it's the same thing when I tried using Toggle or whatever application it happened to be. I had my tasks in one place, my calendar either in another place or in the same place, but then that wouldn't do the time tracking. The fact that ClickUp has all three makes it very easy.
But they're not connected the way you think. This isn't connected to time tracking. It's more so due date scheduling. So it's more on the front end and the back end. Time tracking is something I've been dying to see in their workload view and stuff, but it's not as smart as we'd like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I just see Sarah's put in chat, looking forward to the app. that covers up Jon quite nicely, because Jon's sitting right down the bottom. Are you still there, Jon?
No.
Excuse me. So when it comes to your now that we're in ClickUp, I figured I'd get curious as to how you would lay out a ClickUp space, because when it comes to Notion, when people say, okay, how do I start with Notion? Where do I get started with Notion? You can go, well, you could do any of these 100 things. Go pick one. In ClickUp, it doesn't seem as vast, but there's still a lot of options. What would your Jon?
I want her to start first, but one thing that when I started exploring folders versus lists.
Okay.
I started creating folders and then went, could be a list, but it could be a folder. It could be a list. Well, which one do I decide? That's the one that caught me when I first got started. It was like, which one do I use? Which is a better use?
So I'm going to just open some of these. I put little sparkling icons. I promise I don't actually have this many, enthusiastic sparkle emojis, but I tried to clean up some areas so we could go into them if they help. I think the biggest misconception with ClickUp is that folders and lists really matter that much. Yeah, they really don't.
I love that response. That's the best response ever. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Lists or folders? Well, it doesn't really matter.
It really doesn't that much. I think here you can see some of ours. I put a decision tree. One of the biggest features we've released new. Sorry, my words are not making sense. I've had too much coffee. We have a community called ClickUp Community, right? And that's where I'm teaching people how to use ClickUp. And one of the things that I created for that, which was, sometimes when you're thinking about the way you think, and eventually it clicks and you're like, oh, that's why I think the way I do. I created a decision tree for knowing whether something's a task, a list, or a folder. And when I started making that decision tree, and I would have, if I had it open, I'd pull it up. But basically, it's a flow chart of where to go when. And really, the only time you want to introduce a different list is if you want different permissions. That's one of the main reasons, is if you want different people to see it, not on a task by task basis, but on a kind of a grouping. So in my management area, I actually have like a CEO area and an active team in terms of who I'd like to see what. And that's really the only criteria. There's only a few pieces of data that attach to a list. And the other reasons to use a list, like I have here for Operation Tomato, it's like a sprint or a project you want to be able to report and visualize things by. I use it for my content themes for each month. I use them as lists, not because I want different permissions, but because I want to segment a project or a sprint. And folders don't do anything. They literally just contain lists. So they're just for your own prettiness. They have no data attached to them. You can pull them into a portfolio widget, kinda, but yeah, I think that's a holdover from Asana and other tools that we think that they matter.
So that brings me to something else that I think you mentioned in one of your videos. I can't remember what it was. But when I went into ClickUp,
are you asking me to remember my own videos?
Don't worry, I'm not going to quote you. But going into ClickUp, I've said this to a couple of people that have asked me about Notion. If you give someone a Notion template that's already pre-built, you get all of the stuff for you. And ClickUp is like that. Yeah, ClickUp here is the entire system. Figure out how it works for you. So you get all of the majority of the bells and whistles, even if you don't want them. Yes, you can obviously click off the Click apps. Words. But how would you, do you get around not having things? Would you suggest if someone started with ClickUp just to ignore folders and just go with lists and then introduce them when you need them, when you see them? Or
yeah, if someone is a business owner, right? And you're not talking about a larger team. I always say, and this is what I have in the course as well, it sounds counterintuitive. People get upset when I say it, but create a space called Learning ClickUp and create one list called To Do. And when you've maxed out every piece of the horizontal hierarchy, which is this way, and this is at least how I teach it, the horizontal hierarchies, your custom and standard fields, I think they're like properties in Notion, and your views, which is the way you slice and dice that information. When you've maxed that out and you need more, that's when you introduce a list. And when you've maxed that out and you're like, I have so many lists, that's when you add a folder. I prefer to see it done organically. If you have a team of 20, 30, 40, 50, I mean, that's when it makes sense to maybe have someone help jump ahead for you. That's where I think consulting makes more sense. But for most teams of 5 people, 1 person, just let it develop over a week or 2 rather than build it all out with their ClickUp has really crappy templates. Use their templates and then you don't understand what they are and they don't work anyway.
Yeah, their templates are awful.
Awful. Yeah.
They are so bad.
I tried to be fair in my ClickUp versus template, ClickUp versus Notion video. I tried to be fair, and I was like, I don't like them, but they do this, this, and this. Yeah,
I think they're so bad. They're made by a software company who's trying to tell a service or product or home service business how their business should flow. I think that's the biggest challenge of it, because the templates are supposed to have a baked-in process, and ClickUp's whole team is, they're Silicon Valley folks. I mean, they're San Diego folks, and most of them have product background in the sense of software products. But to imagine them building a CRM that would be used by a business like any of ours, I think it's hard for them to make that jump.
So yeah. So for me, I love the fact that I'm talking more than normal. It's great. I love it because I've literally been in this CRM in ClickUp. I see there's a template there. I'm sure I saw a video of you saying you shouldn't do a CRM in ClickUp, and then you've changed your mind.
Yep.
John, you change your mind all the time, so you can't talk.
No. I'm interested. I'm interested. That's a really weird. I'm interested. Why did you change your mind? What made you change your mind? And yeah.
I mostly work with businesses that have, a few people in them to, larger teams that are maybe 50. So a huge range of people. And if you have a business that actually is driven by sales and sales is your main function, I feel like a CRM to me is supposed to track your back and forth with the person. It's supposed to automatically know when was the last time you talked to Jane Doe. And in that way, ClickUp.
Oh, Jane.
Yeah, or Jane.
She's always used as examples.
The last time you talked to Danny, then you have to be able to track that in a CRM. And that's what I would expect in a CRM, like, HubSpot, for example. That was why for the longest time I was not telling people to use ClickUp as a CRM, because it's not a database. It's not nearly as flexible as Notion. And every single thing in ClickUp is a task with task-related fields. If I were to click into any of these, they all have assignees, due dates, all that stuff, which is why it's made for tasks. And with a CRM, if you have a lot of people in it, it becomes more of a client database, but never truly a CRM. I have it called CRM here because that's what people are searching for, but it's not like it's really managing your relationship. It's more of a journal for the things that you want to manually track around your clients or leads. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. I just read this question. I don't know whether John, I can't see you again, so I don't know whether John saw the question. Actually, I can see you down there, John. But yeah, so Gail's question: do you think ClickUp depends too much on presumed workflows in its design? What friction do you encounter when setting up ClickUp for your own personal workflow?
I feel like I'd love to hear John's response first, because aren't you going through this like right now?
Yeah,
he's nodding.
I was nodding. Like, Notion is not presumptuous at all. It doesn't assume anything. ClickUp does, which is kind of its point, I get, which I like. But one of the big things that's sticking points for me is I am so used to being able to do what the heck I want in Notion. Mm-hmm. And in ClickUp, I can't. Like, if I want to create a page with some information and then perhaps pull this in here, pull this in there, and then do this, I can't necessarily do that. I can do a lot in ClickUp. And honestly, the big thing for me was when I opened up the tasks, I was just like, yeah, I want to put something in pages, but I don't like the docs. I hate them. They annoy me. And I suppose I could put it in the description, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And that freedom of Notion it's so very different. I think me and Danny were saying this before before you came on later. I feel that with Notion is very much more creative focused. Not that you can't be creative in ClickUp, but it is very much for those who want to create their own systems from scratch, don't want any help whatsoever.
Yep.
And I think that's where Notion will unfortunately always succeed because of the way it's been designed.
Unfortunately?
Well, fortunately, unfortunately, it depends on who you're talking to and what you're saying. Shush.
Jon, you're meant to be supporting Notion here.
I am. No,
You've moved to the dark side.
look, you did it first. Don't you do that? Like, you have the full freedom inside of Notion to build your tasks exactly like you want. And that's the CRM thing really bothered me because that's the first thing I bought in. It's like I had a list of products that I'm working on because I'm updating all of my services and products, and I put that into ClickUp. And I realize now that's probably the wrong thing to do because it didn't sit right. I couldn't do what I could do inside of Notion. And you're about to go, yes, you can. This is how you can do it. And I'm going to cry. You have a business learning library. Oh, no.
I do. Yeah, it's dangerous.
No. See, I have something called Course Junkies in Notion. And I'm just like, oh, you have a CRM there? No. It's not gonna let.
This is what our conversation went like. I said to Jon, "Look at this," and he goes, "Oh, no," and then I said, "Look at this, no." Yeah.
I will say that I still agree on the CRM thing. I think as a solopreneur, like since I'm the only one doing sales, I shouldn't say not a solopreneur, but I'm the only one selling. I think I have a lot more flexibility with what I can make work. And when I said and corrected in that one video that you can make a CRM, like you see here, I don't want to go into it, but I have a ClickUp members, like our membership members. I manage the whole membership in ClickUp, and having a task per member is the way we keep track of our whole onboarding experience, any notes, communications, but it's not automated like a CRM. And so it's difficult to have, we have a few team members who are helping with the community, and it's a personal discipline to write your notes of like, what did you talk about with that person? Yeah. It's not. So if you had a bigger team, I would still go to something like Streak as a good, in between, so you can have them truly separated. But you can do it if you're disciplined.
Of course. And that's the thing. It goes back to that thing of you can do it.
But should you?
Yeah.
And I think with ClickUp that and Notion, equally, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like both of them toot themselves as an all-in-one workspace.
And they're both not.
They're not. No matter how much neither one of us want to admit our own platforms that we use are all in one. They're not. And
upcoming podcast episode on that.
Huh?
Upcoming podcast episode on
we recorded that last week.
Exactly. So that'll be coming out, what, 2 weeks time?
Something like that. I don't remember.
All in one apps are not possible.
Yeah.
They are possible. It's just whether they should be.
ClickUp's tagline, which I have been, you've probably seen me make nasty comments about it ever since I started on YouTube, the app to replace them all. I'm like, in what reality?
Yeah. And the same with Notion. Same with Notion. I think, like, honestly, I am going to be moving over to ClickUp. You heard it here first, because it's good for my team and it is good for project and task management.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to use Notion. I'm still going to use Notion for docs. I'm still going to use Notion for wiki. I'm probably going to keep my reference library inside of there. Because it makes sense. Oh, here comes Danny.
I've got like 6 questions in my head, and I'm like, don't forget them. I could write them down in something called Notion, but I'm not going to. So when it comes,
I have more questions too. Carry on.
Oh, okay. When it comes to the note taking, you mentioned taking notes in a task. How do you resurface those when you need them? Is it just you remember you've taken the event or the task and then just go in there, or how do you resurface information, events, tasks, that sort of stuff?
I would say this is a big difference between Notion and ClickUp, because Notion, I mean, I feel like if I was in college, I would love Notion so much. It would be so fun. To me, that's like the productivity hobby is Notion, because you can just build your whole brain. Sorry.
We'll have to clip that. Hot take.
Yeah, hot take. Okay, clip it. That's what she said. You won't believe what she said about Notion.
I'll put that in the Notion Reddit and I get like 1,000 upvotes.
Sorry.
That's how I feel like it would be. I think it's so fun to organize things. And I feel like Notion is the place to do that. It's so creative and fun. But when it comes to notes in ClickUp, you have more structure. And I think notes are one of those things that is difficult to figure out how to do in ClickUp. And if it was in Notion, you could just MacGyver a way that makes sense for your brain. Yeah. In ClickUp, the way I do it, which might not be the way that your brain does it, so take that all with a grain of salt. I use docs for long-term storage. This does not handle the resurfacing of notes, but this is my long-term storage here. Mostly SOPs. It's very business-oriented, not so much big vision. Although if we have a project, we might make a specific doc to talk about that project. I also have, and I don't know if I want to share it here, but I have a brainstorming dashboard where it's just a bunch of text widgets that help me kind of go big picture, mention different tasks, and kind of collect thoughts and process them that way. But in terms of the system resurfacing notes for me, I don't think I have any way that I regularly do that. I pretty much put my notes on the task. Like, for example, when I was talking about the members of ClickUp, like if I have a conversation with one of them that's really good, I will put it in the comments area of that task. And if it's something that needs to have action taken, like for example, here we have questions to answer for ClickUp. And these are basically questions that have come in that I answer every week in our private video every week. And when these videos come up, and if they're related to somebody in them, I basically put a due date on it and I link it back to the task that's their person and say, hey, follow up with Danny and send him the answer to his question. See, I'm not using Jane Doe anymore. Now that I'm trying.
John's going to feel jealous soon.
But I would say due dates are the way to have them resurface, but it's not like a nice static way. Although content sorting, which I think we talked about this, or maybe it's not my content sort. I think it actually is content sort. I have some ways in here, which I probably shouldn't share that one, but I have them sorted by last updated. And so from high to low of all of the different ideas, and the last time they were updated is what shows up at the top. So that's one way to kind of triage for areas where I want to be resurfacing old ideas. But it's per view and it's a task-based structure for notes there. Same with Learning Library, I think.
And the fact that you've said Learning Library sort of didn't remind me of the other point, but Notion's Clipper is not great, but it's so Evernote's Clipper, I think, is the best one. Then there's Notion's Clipper. And I mean, ClickUp, it doesn't have a clipper, but you can bookmark stuff. Do you use it? Because you have to clip it to a task, not just a doc note or anything like that. Same with pictures. If you screenshot something, it has to be in a task. You can't just paste it in the notepad or anything. It has to be in a task.
Through the extension, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. If you use the Chrome extension, you are going into a task. And that's why I built the Learning Library around a task per resource structure. Just so that way it's easier for us lazy folks. I feel like if I was more disciplined, I would be using a doc. But I think this is a really good area where Notion and ClickUp complement each other. Like I have a lot of folks I work with who they are using Notion. They're never going to give it up because they love Web Clipper, among other features. And this is an area where you can just combine the two versus using Notion as your Web Clipper hub and your own resource library. Jonathan has a really good point. So I will wrap up, but just say you can use Notion for that and link to it in ClickUp, even though Notion doesn't allow for iframe embeds, which...
That was what I was about to hit on.
Really?
Yeah, I was just about to go, I could, and it's actually leads on to a question I do have about ClickUp. Client dashboards.
Yeah.
That I was just like, could I saw the embed iframes on the dashboards and I was like, could I embed Notion? That'd be really good. I'd like that because then they can go on to Notion, do the stuff they want to do in Notion and then come back and then have the task management, which is much better. I looked at it and I was just like, no, come on.
You can do the reverse though, which is what I usually tell people to do. Oh,
you can.
So if folks are using Notion and they're comfortable and their clients are in Notion or Asana or whatever other tool they can't get rid of, you can take public views of ClickUp. You can take public views of ClickUp, bunch of them, and embed them in an iframe or an embed widget or whatever tool you're using. I believe it's a code block. I'm going to butcher what it is in Notion. But you just embed it into Notion and build a client dashboard in Notion that embeds ClickUp elements, have your engagement and interaction in Notion, but the data is pulling from ClickUp. We actually just built that out like last month for a podcast company because they love Notion, but the project management side of the team hates Notion.
Oh, my brain.
I've experimented with that as well. I've experimented. I haven't gone like full. When I go full into an app, it gets a bit bit nuanced, bit niche.
So client management. So like having like client dashboards. I'd love to hear how you do it if you do it, because you're a consultant. So do you do consulting with clients as well?
Yeah.
And do you manage all that inside of, well, you probably would, wouldn't you, thinking about it?
It's weird. My business has changed a lot in the last year. So I started this year one-on-one services. Mid-year, I was doing some group services. And by the end of the year now, I'm actually trying to move away and go more into content because it's so fun, as you guys know. So beginning of the year, what my workspace looked like, if that helps to hear, is that kind of like what you're asking in terms of how
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
So I had something like the CRM kind of thing going on here, and I would have a list per service, and I would have a template applied when the task, which equaled my client, moved into that list.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I only did productized services. I did a few projects, and if it was a big custom implementation, then they would get probably their own list. But I mostly did things that were productized, which go figure. So I was able to just bulk apply the template, and I had a task per client so I could easily track where they were overall, because, you know, at peak I had like 15 simultaneous clients. So that is too much for me to be able to see as like a whole folder or whole list. I prefer to keep things lower on the hierarchy, which a lot of people disagree with me on that one, but that's what worked for me.
I got a couple of other questions. Jon, do you have anything you wanna go with?
No, that's really fascinating. I find that fascinating. It's kind of it's so, yeah. I'm just excited now. Carry on, Dan. I ain't got nothing else to say.
Oh, when we finish stream, he's just going to sit there going, no again. He's just going to keep doing it.
I'm not. I can't anymore, because even just playing around on my own, I was just like, recurring. And I'm going to go look at integromat. Literally, it's on a tab for me to go and look at later.
Yeah. integromat, and also if you watch, I have a video on conditional processes. It's called like Build Your Systems or something. That process is plus one that I have in the community side, but that process is pretty much how I managed all of my clients, stacking task-based templates. It's like wonderful way.
I've seen it. I'm a bit of a YouTube binge watcher on the down low, of course. When it comes to tasks and events, because obviously everything inside of ClickUp is a task, do you have an events list and then task lists, or how do you separate them?
This is a topic, isn't it? Because and even me and Danny have, if you wouldn't have seen this before, but me and Danny have had frequent discussions about when we were both in Notion. About he has his tasks inside of his events were in the same database, whereas mine was always separated. So this is interesting. I like it.
Tell me what you mean by events, though. Give me my jargon straight.
I think everyone's definition of an event and a task is slightly different. Right. For me, a task has a due date, so I'm going to do it at some point. An event typically will have a time on it, so a meeting would be an event, or a conference, or a video, or a stream, or something like that. I know that for me, that's my personal workflow. Like an event is something where I need to attend, whereas a task is something I just need to do.
Yeah, that's exactly how I had it. I had them separate.
Yeah, I have them separate, but I have a third category, which is probably somewhat in between, but I think it might just be because of how I think about the word task. It probably helps to look at this. I use my calendar for events. I have them totally separate. And my calendar talks to the time blocked calendar. I shouldn't even say that. It's time themed. So my calendar events are kind of where I go to for everything. That's how I know the event side of things that aren't specific. I don't put them in ClickUp at all, because all that would be is double record keeping for me. So when it comes to events, I keep them on that calendar because my team can see it too. And that's how I keep all of those things. I don't have that many events, maybe because maybe I don't do enough events, but that's how I handle those. They feed into ClickUp as of this weekend, which is wonderful. And from there, I kind of have two different areas of tasks, I guess, as you would call them. I have tasks that have due dates and kind of a running list where there's no due dates. I kind of just work in a progressive order through them. And I think that's probably the biggest divide, because I don't use due dates always. I use due dates for tasks. And then for me, the other things that I just want to pick away at, I don't use due dates at all. And that's why I have these kind of theme buckets. I dump everything in these sort areas, and they correspond to the actual working areas.
I really quite like that, because I'm someone who likes to just if I'm not mistaken, Danny, you're very much due date must be done. If it's not in there, you are.
Have you not seen my scratch pad on my Notion page? It's on my dashboard, the scratch pad
yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, come on, John. How long have we known each other?
Oh,
or the secondary inbox, the scratch pad, like.
Yeah, I'm too much like spurtsy that I can't really do due dates. Like I can't always say that I want to record a video every day. It just wouldn't work. But that's why I do like these theme chunks where they're kind of color coded, weird with this new ClickUp integration with calendar. They all come in as purple. But the kind of red, yellow, blue for me is like sorting the type of mood or state of being I need to be in. It's kind of like a context, I guess, in GTD, sort of. If I were to,
try and bring a method in there.
Yeah, just throw that in. But
just for me, force the method in there. It's like, yeah, this is GTD. Yeah.
But John, you've seen my videos. I've quite literally gone, this is my system, but it could be GTD, or it could be this, or it could be. It's not, but it could be. Because at the end of the day, it's just getting stuff done.
Yeah, I actually have a theme called Getting Things Done, or a day theme called that, and it's not at all actually following that methodology. But the idea is like there's buckets, and I'm in a state of mind when I go into that bucket. And like content has due dates because I need to adhere to an outside schedule. Client services has due dates because I need to, but like growth tasks, for me, that's any of my free time. That's when I get to work on growth tasks, or when every time I've protected for that.
So you say theme. Is that a theme of the day or a theme of the time or? Theme of
the day.
Right.
and just to be really dorky here, because I am not, you can tell I'm in my home office. This also coordinates to like, do I have to dress for other humans in that day? Or is this more of a laid back kind of editing day? So I don't know if anyone else has that. Yeah.
All of us do.
Yeah. So those themes coordinate to whether or not I have to dress like a human being.
Yep. I mean, so my system, my Notion system, having explored ClickUp, my Notion system, I kind of recreated the subtask moving thing. So in ClickUp where you move the task and the subtasks move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recreated that in Notion because I was still using Notion at the point. So whenever I moved the project, which in ClickUp is a task, the task would move, but in ClickUp is a subtask. You get the point. Yeah. And they would be defaulted to a day. So I have a theme of the day. So those tasks would stay where they need to, irrespective of where the project got moved to. And in ClickUp, that works to an extent. But if you change, you have to know, if I'm going to change the week, then I want to move them. If I want to change the day, I don't want to move the subtasks. And yeah, a little bit more finicky, but it still works. And having that theme of the day, for me, is more of like a guideline rather than a set in stone thing. I mean, if you were to go into my ClickUp or my Notion, either one, you would see stuff that shouldn't be done today, but it's because I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the remapping, I think those kinds of functionality, though, that's what you start to miss when you're in ClickUp on the advanced side, because it's so smart about all the basic stuff. And when you start to push those limits, you have no recourse if you want it to behave differently. I mean, you can set up an integromat scenario, but then it just gets a little bit extensive. You just have to start supplementing the system with behaviors, which is really, I think, expensive relative to being able to add in a formula, or I don't know if macros are available, but whatever the equivalent is in Notion to really customize it. You don't have that option in ClickUp, unfortunately.
It's just a formula, and it's manipulating formulas. And you don't necessarily need to understand code, but you need to have that sort of mind to be able to manipulate Notion in that way. Because I know that some of the formulas that I've made are not the easiest formulas to make in Notion. Maybe John could speak a little bit more on that, because John's used a couple of them.
They are fantastic. Like we did a stream last week, which was just him getting really annoyed with himself because he rebuilt it.
Ooh.
Really short and much smaller. Like half the lines it ended up being.
Yeah, I think I went from like a 27-line formula to a 15-line formula. So yeah.
I'm a total. I know nothing about this. Is it an actual coding language, or is it just a built-in formula language?
It is a kind of coding language. It's based on JavaScript, I think.
Okay.
It functions the same as, so I've explored ClickUp Formulas, as you can imagine.
Oh,
they're not quite as like, they're not at the same level, but I think that's because Coda it's a boxed app, so there are certain things you can and can't do. So the formulas obviously have limits, but it functions the same. So in ClickUp it says field and then the name of the field, whereas in Notion it says prop and then the name of the property. And then you still have the same functionalities. I haven't explored ClickUp enough to know whether you can use regex in ClickUp formulas. I think you can, looking at some of the functions that you're allowed. But yeah, that's just like super nerdy.
We are going to have a chat about that, Danny. When you said formulas are in ClickUp, I'm like, oh no.
I have a video coming out, I think this week. No, it's this month for sure. I think it's this week because I now this is so bad I don't remember. I could look it up in ClickUp, but I won't. On advanced formulas in ClickUp and how much they stink. I'm not a big fan of them at all. I tried to push it as far as it would go. Like it's basically Excel formulas, but less reliable. And so just if rounding errors, and then add text at the end. It's no different syntax than Excel. And they're finicky and they don't really lead anywhere. Where I love about Notion is because the databases relate to each other and you can kind of build a formula on a formula like Excel, which is why I consider Notion more of a database than whatever we'd call ClickUp, work management, I guess. ClickUp's formulas are dead ends. You can't calculate off of them. You can't report on them. You can't use a formula to create another formula.
Oh.
I don't know why you would want a task by task result that you can't sum up. So I've been in that video, I end it by saying something like, I don't know why they even created this. They should just have made a calculation widget that actually works. It's kind of a letdown, I think.
Yep. Yeah. So in Notion, formulas, like you say, have two reasons for an output. So you can see something, whether that is like how many days you've got left, which is something I'm going to ask about, how many days you've got left, or some a date, a string, a number, or something like that. But then, like you say, you can also reference whatever that is. So if it is a date property or a number property, you can then manipulate it any way you want. And then putting regex into that, endless answers. But obviously, you need to write a hell of a long formula in the formula box in Notion. It's disgusting. No scroll bar. And ghost blocks. And
no
bugs.
scroll.
Oh, do not get me started with the formula box. I went on like a 40-minute rant.
I think that's episode 4.
I don't even know. I just did a big old rant about the formula box. But yeah, so in ClickUp, when it comes to the days, like the due dates, so I guess content would be the easiest way I could explain this when it comes to context, is the task is essentially the project, like what you need to do, and that's got the due date. So the piece of content has the due date. I'm currently using Subtasks as the actions for the content.
Yep.
I assume that's the same structure as you?
Yep.
When I'm in a subtask, I can't see when the actual project, i.e. the piece of content is due. I have to go to the task. Is there a way to see that information? So see the task due date in the subtask.
There is not once you're inside the actual area. So we're going to see, I think I have a bunch of these open here. So this is my monthly kind of content for this month. Some of these are behind, but they're actually done because we haven't updated some of them. But when you have to go inside a task, so like this video is premiering tomorrow, we have all of our stuff in the description. If you go inside the subtask, so if I go down here and go inside it, you do lose a lot of your context about what's going on. You can step back to the main task, but the custom fields, which is a big piece for me, are kind of lost to your visual. So that's why I usually live in a list view with subtasks expanded. It's annoying how the custom fields come through then, but then you keep all of the context in front of you. I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yeah, it kind of does. Like that's what I thought, and I've tried to figure out some workarounds for it. And I've figured workarounds for it, but then it messes with the templates and then the dependencies inside the template because of the way that the workflow currently is going. Because of essentially, I put the same due date on the subtask as was on the task, and then had a start date for the action date of the subtask. But then the inbox doesn't work the same way. Because everything.
Your reaction to that, sorry.
Yeah. And I was like, no.
Yeah, I think due dates you might want to leave at the door if you're using subtasks for your process. I mean, if you're really due date heavy, I would just stick to using custom fields as your process and skip the subtasks, especially if you're a team of one. But if you're using subtasks, the due dates for those subtasks should be the times that you're performing those subtasks. And I would probably avoid using start dates at all because, like you said, they clutter up your entire inbox with anything that started, which is insane. So dependencies instead of due dates can also help. We have that for some of our video templates, like the lives that are repurposed and such. We just use dependencies to let us know what's the next step, and we just do it as soon as that alert comes through rather than using due dates at all.
So do you use your inbox at all?
I think inbox is great if you're like really not tech savvy. No, I do not. Okay. Unless I need to get reminders out of it, because that's the only way you can get like pictures. When I'm on social media, I'm mostly like just lurking and I'm trying to steal strategies from marketers that do cool things that I like. So I do a lot of screenshots on my phone and shoot them into ClickUp, and those can only be transferred into reminders directly from your phone. So I use inbox for reminders, and that's pretty much it. I use views for everything else. That's what these guys are showing me.
So do you always navigate through the sidebar by clicking like through the sidebar? Or do you use...
Oh, God, don't you get started on sidebars. He's going to go now.
What?
I'm not a fan of sidebars like at all.
Oh, no.
I hate navigating sidebars. Absolutely hate it. I even made a tab bar in Notion just so that I didn't have to use the sidebar in Notion. So I put links of pages onto emojis in a global block to, yeah.
But isn't it basically just a sidebar in the center of the page? Center bar?
It's at the top, so it's like your Chrome tab.
It is. He's going to argue it.
Yeah.
Yes. Your favorites can go across the top, and then they follow you everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm using those, but I'm not using the sidebar because I don't like it on the side because it clutters up like the screen.
I use favorites. I should say that I exclusively use favorites to navigate. I just keep them on the sidebar. So I actually don't use the main sidebar unless I'm working in something I don't normally work in.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, I can chill. I can relax.
Yeah, these 1, 2, 3, 4, like these are the 4 places I live all day, every day. Like I work through them. Focus is like this is basically my modified inbox, which will show me overdue things assigned to me. But I add a little bit more customization than you can in inbox because I think inbox is annoying. And then depending on the theme of the day, I pop into those other ones. And these remaining ones are just to like idea sorting because I put a lot of ideas in and most of them are terrible. So I like to have a dumping ground for ideas by category. And that's what these are.
So I need to ask you these questions. They're probably really beginner ones because I haven't. So I work exactly how you do. I work on themes, which is fantastic. And I'm going to come and chat with you again afterwards.
Yes, please.
I'm going to have a chat with you because I like this. I work by themes. And so are those views like of a space? Space? I don't know the terminology. Correct me. Are they views of spaces? Like, or certain... You'll have to explain that part because I'm intrigued. It looks like you... So I've seen everywhere else that everything is all about like having different sections for each department, and I love the fact that you just don't have that.
No, I recommend people build, and so like I have a lesson on this, which was another one that was hard to reconstruct. I've never really liked building by departments unless your team is 30 plus people, and that's just how they're so wired. I like to group by process.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's what I found really hard when I started. So I started looking at the traditional way of doing different departments and different sections, just like, yeah, but this is bugging me already, and I don't like it.
That's why I couldn't get started with ClickUp to start with, because I was watching videos and I was like, no, don't like that. But when I figured it out myself, and I was like, actually, let's just ignore that. I hadn't seen any of your videos at this point. And I was just like, I'm going to ignore all the ClickUp consultants. They don't know how I work. And then I started building stuff, and then I came across one of your videos. I was like, oh no. This makes sense. This actually makes sense now.
Yeah, mine are all when I have people build it, and the exercise they go through in the community is building around the main processes of your business in terms of like what, like if we think of it as a machine, what are the different gears? And for me, it's like the actual business, content, and just keeping track of things. Those are like the 3 main areas. And so that translates to my 3 spaces. I think most of the time we get on project management to make teams work better together. So bringing over the silos that we used when we built our org charts is just completely silly, because I love the metaphor of like org charts go this way to break by department, but your customer travels this way across the org chart. So we should follow this way in our ClickUp.
Oh, that's so true. It's so true. I'm going to go through a couple of the comments in chat because I don't want everyone to feel sort of left out. So I saw this one from Gail. It was from a while ago, but I've been reading it and I'm like, I'll bring it up, and then something comes up and I'm like, the conversation. But yeah, new form of measurement when it comes to essentially behaviors. Yes, I think at the end of the day, getting something done is about the human behavior. I can't remember, John, what you said, but John asked me a question, and I cannot remember if it was a live stream, a conversation, or a podcast. And he asked me what he thought was going to be a good question. I just said mindset as the answer. Do you remember what that was, John? No. But yeah, I said I had mindset as the answer because at the end of the day, no matter what your app looks like, whatever system you're using, it comes down to your mindset and whether you're actually going to do something. Are you going to action it? And there was a Twitter thread as well. I can't remember who it was to start with, but they were talking about loads of different apps. Like everything was in there. You had Coda, Asana, Trello, Notion, all of them. Rome was in there as well as a project manager, which I'm not even going to go there. Smiley face Rome. That's a reference. Yeah, just put in context. I explored Rome on a stream, and I didn't like the view. We have the dots and the lines going between. I made a smiley face out of it because that's the only use I had. But yeah, so smiley face Rome was project management. No, but they were going through all these things, and you had all the people arguing, "Oh, this is best, this is best, that is best." No, none of them are best. You just got to do it. You could use paper. You could use paper, and you could beat all of them.
Right. And I think one of the differences where the tool does matter is if what your brain really needs is in conflict with the tool's assumptions. That is like the one caveat where it does make sense to switch tools, but the best tool is generally the one you know how to use. It doesn't matter what it can do. It's just if you can use it, you're going to get 80-90% of the utility from it. So much of productivity on YouTube, at least, is productivity apps. And those are in conflict.
Yeah, this is my whole entire business is anti that. I think you and I, Lena, are kind of the same in that way. It's like, no, I don't care what app you use. And the only reason why I suggest Notion for so many people is because of the freedom of Notion. So then you can really build exactly what you want. And after exploring ClickUp, it's the same thing. It's like Notion or ClickUp. I don't care which one. Like, as long as
they're sort of the same thing. Like we've just spent 56 minutes explaining the differences.
But I would say 90% of the planning process is probably the same, maybe 80%. Like if I think you guys, the Notion tutorials you do, I bet you besides the technical piece of it, everything in the planning would apply perfectly to a ClickUp setup. I mean, the process would translate.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And that's something when I started making videos on, I'm not going to go into the YouTube story, but essentially I made a video on Notion that did well because Notion's the app that just gets the attention.
Yeah.
And it just happened to do well, and I just kept going with that. But there is a point where you think, okay, you could apply any of these concepts to any app, and I think any consultant of any productivity app could go to another app and do pretty much the same thing within a couple of weeks. I mean, I've been looking at ClickUp for actually looking at ClickUp for about a week. Give me another couple of weeks, and I think I could do a competent job of helping someone with ClickUp, but I think it would be the same with you in Notion. You could go into Notion for a couple of weeks and probably consult with Notion and Asana, Trello, whatever consultants. I think it'll be the same because we all have the fundamental framework of how to do stuff.
Yeah, that's how for the longest time I didn't specialize at all because I was like, it doesn't matter what tool we build in the end. Like my process, whatever it was, like the first beginning stages were the same, whether we were building Asana or ClickUp or Rike. And I think people thought that was so weird, which is why I specialized in ClickUp because people want what they want, even if it's not what they need. And so I started specializing in ClickUp because I was recommending it a lot and it just made more sense to people. Everyone expected it to be totally different. So when I said I worked with multiple tools, it threw people off. But I will say, one, specializing, the stuff that comes after implementation can be helpful to have more familiarity with. Like I'm sure you're debugging Notion really fast because you have years of working in Notion and realizing what breaks. I think sometimes the debugging and support side does benefit from a lot of experience, but the whole beginning, completely agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the same with me. I mean, being a student plan on Notion, loads of students go to Notion because it's free for a personal plan. Just makes sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense for that use case, or even solopreneurs, creatives. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably seen all the Notion videos on YouTube. I've stopped watching them all now because it's like 20 videos a day. I'm like, I can't keep up with this anymore. But there are so many people in so many different walks of life putting their stuff up from Notion, but a lot of them are designers, creatives. Yeah, that's about it, really. Designers and creatives, because they're.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think that's where ClickUp, and the more I explore it, the more I firmly believe that I don't think ClickUp is for designy people or creative-y people. Like if you just want to get stuff done, which is exactly where I've reached in my business, I love to play, and I will keep playing with Notion, never will stop. I will keep consulting the Notion, never will stop. But if it comes down to just getting stuff done in the most efficient way possible, ClickUp is it is better, because you can just get stuff done.
But you can't put GIFs in ClickUp. You can't just show them on any page.
I love how they're just like, excuse me. Yes, you can.
You can't put them anywhere and everywhere. Are there borders? Are there borders in ClickUp? Are there icons? I know there's obviously icons, but are there like? Can you change the color of the top bit? I know you can change the color in like calendars and the rest of it.
I'm not sure what you mean by. Oh, you mean kind of like the color headers that you have in Notion pages? No.
Yeah.
And that's one big thing that I see people like. If you're very aesthetic, it can be hard to adjust to ClickUp.
Yeah, and I think for the first couple of days, I was just like, it's just I can't do all the visual things that I like.
Yeah, but you didn't do any visual things. I had to twist your arm to use inline maths to get some colors in there, other than the stupid Notion colors that you can't actually see.
Yeah, by visual I mean the almost.
I'm waiting for this. Go on.
Almost like lack of visual. Like everything in ClickUp is just there. You see everything.
All the skeletons.
Yeah. Whereas in Notion, it's very much you can just jump into a page and you're fine. Which I suppose is what I love, how you've just gone favorites. Like the subtle hint there. Thank you. And I think I do need to implement favorites, and
it's really.
Yep.
I think that's the equivalent to pages, but they're still not as pretty.
Whereas with Notion, I can just, if I want to dump some text and have a little bit where I get people to go different places, I would need to use a dashboard. And I've been exploring dashboards, and I kind of like dashboards. They're kind of cool, but they're not Notion.
No, neither are documents.
No, I'm never. My dogs are gonna stay in Notion because I can't stand the dogs. They are great for SOPs.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, no, I think interactive SOP. I watched, that was your video. I was just like, interactive SOPs. Yes, thank you. Someone gets it. Anyway, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I think docs you can do a lot of document things in Notion and ClickUp, but I think Notion has the edge in that way. Because I remember Danny, we were talking, I was like, well, can you embed a task view inside of the doc? And you didn't. It was just like, oh gosh, this is so.
Yeah. I was like, you can, but no. You can, but just no.
Yeah, you can mention and you can embed the public view. Mentioning is typically what folks do, and that's what I do with a lot of my SOPs, which you've probably seen. And I like them because they pop up in a modal, but pure like an iframe looking embed, not so much. But I think the one thing that we always miss with ClickUp and why it jumped out to me originally is, first of all, an awesome free plan. Not as good as Notion, but it's close compared to Asana or Monday, which is so much more. But the embedding views, like I feel like that was really helpful when I was working with clients and I had a client portal outside of ClickUp, or if I used like a whimsical wireframe or like a Figma drawing. Like I think that's where the creative stuff. Huh?
Notion's better. Notion wins on embed. Notion genuinely does.
I'm going to disagree with you, John.
Oh, I haven't explored embed enough in ClickUp yet, so I shouldn't really be saying anything. So I'm going to be quiet.
There's only certain ones that are supported though. Like most tools are kind of rejecting iframe lately, but like embedding a mural or whimsical file into here and being able to work on the creative. Like I imagine, I don't know if Milanote allows for embedding. I think it does. Like if I had Milanote in one tab and my tasks in another, I feel like that would also satisfy the creative brains if your view was taking you right here.
I'm going to explore with embedding ClickUp into Notion, because that if I could have that, that would be very nice.
Mm. So I like Excel or Google Sheets, one of the two. I like spreadsheets. I use spreadsheets a lot. It's sad. I play around with spreadsheets just because I can, just because I could. So having the ability to. Sorry, John?
I can't. I'm not a spreadsheet guy.
What about you, Leda? Are you a spreadsheet person?
I do, but you know, it's kind of one of those old loves. You can't get rid of it. Once you know it, you're like, oh.
Exactly. And as soon as I realized I could embed a Google Sheets into ClickUp, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I can, so in strength and conditioning, which is my master's degree, you'd periodize a year. And the periodization in a year looks very different to a Gantt chart or timeline view when you're using a spreadsheet, because you'll have all the days, but it'll be down in a week. So, and it's like a spreadsheet view of a year. And then you can do formulas and mess around with stuff. And spreadsheets give you more flexibility when it comes to all that planning, because it's just boxes you can merge and unmerge and all the stuff. And I struggled to do any sort of yearly planning or anything inside of Notion because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And ClickUp, I thought, I can't do it here either. And then I saw the embed. I was like, oh, I can bring a spreadsheet in here.
I am dying for ClickUp to become the app that connects them all. And I've even told ClickUp as much, like, if you would just change that word in your tagline, because I think that's the thing. Like, that's where it becomes powerful. If Notion could connect to this, whether it's visually being here or it's actually integrated, I mean, that's a huge gap right now. We've got all these integration tools, but you can't interact in the integration zone. Yeah. And to me, that's what ClickUp does.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Zapier is so powerful, because it brings things together. That's why so many people use it. You just need that one app.
Like a tunnel. It's more of like a highway. Like, I'm talking about like a roundabout, a town square of data.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be nice.
Yep, agreed. I'm going to go through a couple of these comments because we sort of catch up on the chat. So proper rollups. I don't think ClickUp will get proper rollups because I don't think that's their use. I don't think that is what ClickUp would use, and I don't see how they would use it either. I know you can link a task and a task, but it's only one way.
Do you link tasks together?
I do.
You do? I was intrigued.
Yeah, it's like a non-directional dependency. I use that mostly to associate multiple clients that are married to each other or work with each other, mostly on the CRM side, or with content. If there's a video that mentions another video and I want to have a two-way relationship between the two tasks, but it's not a true, it's not a strong relationship. It's not visual like what you'd see in a Notion database. It's more of just a fancy two-way hyperlink. Yeah. That's what I found. So I don't think rollups would, or you couldn't use a rollup. Like traditionally in Notion, a Notion rollup uses a relation. You couldn't really do that in ClickUp. But no, just within the task itself, time and those kinds of rollups. Yeah,
exactly. I realize I'm hiding John every time. I'm gonna relegate myself down to the bottom so John's face can be seen a little bit. There we go. give you some love, John. Which is better for sprint planning?
Ooh.
I mean, ClickUp has a sprint area. Do you use the sprint area?
The Click app.
Yeah.
I personally have just started experimenting with it with content. I think I don't follow I've been kind of experimenting with sprint methodology and the sprint feature at the same time. So it's kind of been a double test. I found that the sprint methodology isn't perfect for what I do, so I don't use it a whole lot. But from clients, I mean, the fact that sprint points, sprint reporting, and sprint lists that can be automatically created and deleted and the progress tracked, I think that's a pretty strong case for their sprints, because that's what ClickUp uses internally. So they've put a lot of resources behind it.
Yeah, I don't use sprints myself. And I don't see me using them in the future either. So I saw that feature and I thought, oh, that's another one of those things that, like, that's nice, but I don't think I'll use it. Similar with the goals. It's like, that's nice, but I don't think I'll use it.
I tried using it for content, but what's hard is the sprint list. They kind of give you a blank start every sprint. So you need to throw stuff into it every month. But if you were applying a list template,
That's effort. Come on, we're productive nerds. We don't want to have to do anything. Template everything.
Yeah.
I think they're probably better for development sprints. I think I was using them for a little bit for that kind of stuff, but I think it's a business type clash.
Yeah, definitely. There was another question that I remember seeing in chat. Jonathan, hold the fort for a second.
Hold the fort. Holding it right here. I'm holding it nicely. It's beautifully held. See, I'm holding it. There we go. This is really, it's really enjoyable to. I've been enjoying exploring ClickUp because it's been a while since I found an app that I could go in and go, oh, cool, I can do this. Oh, cool, I can do that. What's one thing you don't like about ClickUp? Are there things, okay, this is like opening a can of worms, but we have been so positive about ClickUp on this stream, which is hilarious. But what are the things you don't like about ClickUp that you wish it would do or you wish it had? What really ticks you off?
I have a whole video coming out on this, and I had to narrow it down from 45 to, I'm trying to get it to 10.
Okay, come then.
Yeah.
45.
I would say probably the templating features right now. Slated to be changed, so it's a big old asterisk, but I use ClickUp for process stuff a lot. And I don't care so much that the templates aren't, like they don't version, or they do cause a versioning issue. That's annoying, but that's kind of how it is with all task management, where if you change your template, it doesn't change the past instances of it. But for me, the template management of ClickUp ties into the broader problem that ClickUp has in terms of just getting your data out of ClickUp. I think those two are kind of one and the same, where your template management it's archaic. You can't see the last time things were edited. You can't add notes to your task templates or your any kind of templates. They live in their own separate area where you have to go to a bunch of different spots to find them. And that's related to a bunch of other areas in ClickUp where getting your data out, backing things up, all of that kind of stuff. Ooh, physician.
There we go. That's the right one.
It's just, it hasn't been thought out. And I think that's the trade-off of having fast iterative development is you trade off a lot of common sense features that I would much rather see just cleaned up, like the interface bugs and like the inconsistency of icons, all of those kind of professional polish is not there sometimes, and the details aren't thought out.
Yeah, that was something. It wasn't in the chat. It was something I read in the Notion group. So as you can imagine, they were kind of biased towards Notion and against ClickUp. But they were saying that the UX and the UI is not as nice in ClickUp. Would you think those sort of like small tweaks and bugs? I don't know whether they'd be classed as bugs or just unfinished features, maybe. How would you describe them, like in ClickUp? The bits, like you say, like the icons and stuff like that. How would you describe them?
I think they're the reason I have a job. No.
Being honest.
I think they are. I mean, I don't know how to describe them. I think they're just the result of being fast and furious. I think things like tooltips, consistency of what icons are used, these kinds of things make it. I think someone else talked about the cost of a user behavior or something getting used to a tool. The fact that I need to memorize what so many icons mean in ClickUp, or interpret the fact that sharing, I have a different view here, but if I had the share button, there's a sharing here and sharing and permissions, and those are different, but they have the exact same icon. Those kinds of things, I feel like just make it so hard for people to learn the system. And they're contributing to the learning curve, but ClickUp is spending a lot of energy. They're hiring a bunch of sales reps, putting money into marketing for the first time. And I would love to see their product team have a user experience branch that's a little bit more built out rather than just trying to get more users. But I understand they've got other issues that they need to manage as well.
I am curious, actually, now that you've mentioned that, when it comes to the ClickUp community, obviously Notion's community is rather large on every platform. No matter where you look, there is Notion users, Notion people, and Notion talk with the Notion community quite significantly. They don't show it. They don't share what they do. Obviously, we spoke about transparency at the beginning. They don't share that they talk and pay attention, but they do. When it comes to the ClickUp team, how much interaction do they have with the community that they have built? Do you know that?
I can tell you my perception. I don't know for sure. So the Facebook group, Facebook is probably the place that ClickUp lives. If I were to say where the community is most heavily existent, YouTube maybe second. Like Reddit, if you go to the ClickUp Reddit, it's not so good. Sorry, Reddit. I try to go in that community, but it's dead. So I would say probably Facebook is where it's at. And I think in the early days, I really saw the leadership team of ClickUp engaging a lot in that Facebook group and engaging a lot in the Canny board. And you do see that Canny board, like specifically seeing a lot of movement there from the team of product managers. That is not as evident anymore. I'm sure it's still happening, I guess. But I consider myself pretty plugged in, and I don't see a lot from the community. Or from the actual team. So I think it's probably more passive now. But I do see folks in that Facebook group and product managers or maybe customer service reps, being in that Facebook group, and not nearly as much as what I used to see. So I don't have a good sense.
Yeah, that's one of the. I was just like, as you were saying that, have you got something to add, John?
I think it's interesting. Notion is exactly the opposite. The Facebook group is.
It's not theirs. They don't have one.
It's not great. It's not the greatest Facebook group. It's very much. I don't know. Does Notion have one place?
No, but that's what I was going to say. Like when it comes to ClickUp's transparency with their development is far superior to Notion. But Notion's community is far, far, far superior to ClickUp's. I've been trying, and it's trying to like get blood out of a brick when you're trying to find a ClickUp community. Like it's so difficult. I've been onto every single platform. Sorry?
It's time to pitch your community right now. This is a perfect time for you to go, well,
marketing at its best. I'm on Reddit. You look at the Reddits, and like we say, like ClickUp's Reddit is dead. Notion's has got like 70k users, and it's active. You look at ClickUp on Facebook. They have the Facebook group, but it's very not necessarily limited. But I don't see that much engagement. Maybe that's just the amount of people in there. It just seems like people are in there to see an update. When the update's out, everyone engages, and then when there's no updates, they sort of just disappear again. Whereas Notion, there's just, I mean, whether you like it or whether you don't, there's always stuff there. Dashboards love to be shared. Roll my eyes. And I did a bit of an exploration with all the other apps. So I went to Asana, had a look for their Facebook group, their Twitter feeds, and all that sort of stuff. And does not really exist. And same with Todoist and Trello. And most apps that I've looked at so far don't have a community. They have an app, and then they have a marketing team for businesses, normally focused, what it seems to be, ads towards enterprise users. And then Notion have this massive community across the board, everywhere, many students, and people loving to share all their stuff.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on that because one of my theories, which I was talking about in the comments with one of the subscribers, Doda, we were talking about the Notion cult. No offense. There's also a ClickUp cult. But I think one of the reasons that Notion took off so much, my theory is because it appeals to people who have more time on their hands. No offense at all for Notion users.
Oh, you're right.
I think that helps the community a lot.
Right. You are completely correct, and I think that's we got some Notion people in the command. I honestly agree, because for you to really make Notion work for project management, you got to invest so much time and so many hours of trying to figure it out. Whereas if you want to just, and I think Danny, I don't know whether you agree with me here, but I'm just going to go on a limb. Now that I just want to get stuff done in my business and grow my business, Notion's things that I've got to tweak bug me. That I've got to try and create a formula for recurring tasks. Even though, yes, of course, I can go and copy and paste and blah, 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 but it's still nowhere near as good as ClickUp's.
You almost forgot the app then, didn't you?
Huh?
You forgot the app then, didn't you?
Yeah, and my brain is going 100 miles an hour. I just looked at integromat and I was just like, oh, wow, you can use like Excel style formulas. I'm like, I really need to know about that later. But I think the amount of time you have to invest in ClickUp versus the amount of time to get it working is a lot less. The barrier to entry for what I've experienced just exploring it is a lot less, because it has task management immediately ready for you. It has project management immediately ready for you. And I think one thing from someone who uses the Power method loosely, I love ClickUp for that, because the big thing when I work with clients with the Power method is what's a project and what's a task. Well, it doesn't matter because ClickUp call projects tasks. And so it's, I think that Notion very much is for people who want to explore, and they want to explore productivity as a creative tool, not as a tool to get stuff done. I did see going back to my point earlier about creative people people wouldn't enjoy ClickUp. People who are creative can use ClickUp, of course. But if you want to explore productivity creatively, then I think Notion has the edge because of the freedom. But when you're ready to just get stuff done,
Thomas Frank and Ali Abdaal have obviously had some big impacts with Notion users as well. Just going to put that out there, like having a 2.5 million and 1-something million subscriber channels, both pushing it, with numerous 100,000 sub channels also doing the same thing. They definitely have free marketing right there. That's a lot of people, a lot of eyes.
I think that's a huge part of it. It's just the audience and the user base. ClickUp is three or maybe coming on 4 years old. And it just doesn't have nearly as big of a following. I think it will. But one, I think just a big difference, and this is going to offend people, but I think that's fun for YouTube. So I'll just say it. Notion, when I first looked at it, one of my thoughts is that this is like bullet journaling going digital. And I think bullet journaling, if you just look at how many people subscribed to that trend back, 5-10 years ago, and that was a really big thing, probably 5 years ago, that was a huge craze. And I really feel like Notion appealed to the crossover of going digital from bullet journaling. And I think they rode that wave. Whereas for me, ClickUp was looking at the coattails of all of the terrible project management apps and trying to change something. And Asana had already been in the market for so long, and it was kind of stagnant. And I think it was just making a change in a very different way. And there wasn't a big crazy wave for it. It was more of a slow and steady growth.
And I think that ClickUp, when I first started doing what I do with Notion, ClickUp was not there. But then all of a sudden, what about ClickUp? And I'm just like, And then you jump in to explore ClickUp. There's not a grab, I don't think. There's not so much of a pull as there is with Notion.
I was excited about task management.
Like, whereas, exactly. What's exciting about task and project management? It's boring.
Come on. It's great fun for the nerds. For the nerds.
But if you're a nerd, that's why Notion works so much. But if you just want to get on with stuff, then ClickUp works. Like,
it's not sexy.
It's not sexy, no. Whereas Notion is sexy.
I was going to say that's something I was going to add on, because Notion is so flexible. Same with Coda. If there is a trend happening, you can quite easily hop on the trend, because Notion. When I'm looking for video ideas, I can literally look for anything and just rebuild it in Notion. I mean, one of the Notion ambassadors, Ben Smith, you may have come across him before. He literally has Notionized, and it's a page of Notion pages that have just recreated other apps inside of Notion. So you can hop on whatever other trend or whatever's going on with Notion, because you can just build what you want. Very similar with Coda. I need to explore that further. But ClickUp can't do that. ClickUp's ClickUp. That's it.
You can recreate some things, but I've even tried, because there's some Notion setups I really like, but the lack of relational databases, I could rebuild pretty much anything in Notion in Excel or Airtable, probably, if I was determined enough. But do I need to? No. Do I want to? I know. Probably more Airtable from that gallery view, but still, you could get the same thing. And I think that's the beauty of ClickUp. The fact that I think some of the best setups in ClickUp are not a lot to look at. And the worst setups in ClickUp look the most fancy and schmancy, and they've got tons of folders and lists. That's usually the most ineffective setup. I think it's curve, but it's also back to what people want, what people need. People want sexy things that rely on trends. So do the algorithms. And if practical and simple and basic is what works, that's not nearly as sexy for influencers or anyone.
And to Sarah's point, it was actually interesting. So I was looking at one of Thomas Frank's older videos. I can't remember what it is. It was about task management, and he mentioned ClickUp. So he actually mentioned ClickUp on his YouTube channel before he mentioned Notion. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And the video was like a year before his Notion video, and he mentioned ClickUp as one of the task managers. And that video has like 600,000 views on it. So it's not like people didn't see it. It's just they just looked over it. And it was just like, oh, ClickUp, that's another app.
And it was terrible in 1.0 form. I want to be like, I got hooked on it on 1.0, but I think based on the timeline that you said, it was probably still in ClickUp version 1. And it's changed a lot. And since then, the Notion wave has taken over the algorithm. I mean, we could put the same video out, I think you and I, same exact topic, different tool. And I think we'd have a very different reach just because of the algorithm and the amount of search volume for Notion.
That's something me and Danny have discussed, isn't it? Like, I looked at ClickUp, I went, wow, why don't more people know about this? And the thing is that it's because Notion is such a big deal right now.
Yeah, look at the search volume. Whew. Very
Yeah.
different.
And
Very,
the
very
sad fact is that if ClickUp doesn't, if Notion doesn't hurry up, I think ClickUp, there's a chance it could take over because they are more forward. Hot take there. Like I think because they are so much more. I just enjoyed being able to know what's coming,
Same.
and I didn't have to be in some form of specific community to know what's coming. I just had to make sure I subscribe to their emails and have them come in. And I'm just like, here's what's coming. I'm like, oh, that's quite nice. That's like update, you know, 3 point whatever. This is a new update. This is what's happening. I'm like, oh, nice, cool. I can start thinking about implementing that now. And because when you update stuff and you start implementing, what's your face for? I'm intrigued by your face now.
I'm getting there. Hold up.
What?
I don't know. Suspense is killing me.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting to.
The search traffic comparison, of course, because we needed to go there.
Honestly,
This makes me feel so much better.
How different it was.
But this makes me feel so much better about my YouTube channel. So thank you.
Wow.
It's an uphill battle over here.
Just to give you an idea, guys, of Notion versus ClickUp.
Mm-hmm.
So
it doesn't help that most people search click space up, but still, yeah.
Yeah. When you put in Notion, it's actually much higher because Notion is, I think it's a song or a band, I'm not sure. But yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure how, because I researched it a while ago. And they were, it wasn't that severe. It was something like 25, 30, and then ClickUp was sort of slightly lower. Obviously, the recent updates where the big spike was. But it's but something that is surprising. So when I was looking for Notion and Trello is actually higher than Notion.
I think that.
Even with Notion's big spike, Trello's still higher because it's just been around. And similar with Evernote and Trello, they're just well-known names.
Yep.
And John and I have said this a couple of times, but I think Notion is becoming not necessarily the next WordPress, but the next WordPress of productivity apps, because there's plugins and add-ons, and if the API ever comes out, I mean, there's so many apps, add-ons, developers, and people throwing stuff in because it's so open source. It kind of becomes this app that you can build on and do what you want. And if ClickUp does have the integration that can go in, you can use the other app and just bring it in. So it comes back to that. What did you call it? Roundabout of productivity apps?
I changed it to town square. I want to think of a European town square. A big plaza.
I like that.
If only. That's the dream, at least. I don't know if it'll come to be, but I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. And I think it's all going to change. It's all shifting at all points in time, but they're in such different areas. I don't think Asana was probably ever, you can prove me wrong, it was ever as big of a search term as the bullet journal. I mean, just considering who it's appealing to. And I think that relates back to the community element, why one community is bigger than the other. That's why ClickUp probably does a lot of things by email versus community mass followers, because here's my plug. Okay, Jonathan, I have a ClickUp community. I have a free one on Facebook, and I have a paid one, which is like a paid content thing, right? And it's the equation for engagement is so different in there versus other tools. Not just because ClickUp is kind of strange in how it interacts with the public, and therefore how like the rest of us interact, but it's just you're dealing with busy business owners who just want to manage their manage their projects and get things done. And I think that's just a different demographic.
I agree. I think that Notion users are more likely to just want to play.
But playing is learning. I don't want to discount play. You can learn so much by playing, and
I think that's the thing that puts people off of ClickUp. There's not as much space to play. I could be wrong. Remember, still first couple of weeks in ClickUp, but there's not as much scope to play in ClickUp.
I would agree with that.
Would you agree? Yeah, there's not as much, and I think that even with the transfer over to ClickUp, I'm still going to play in Notion more because I find Notion more. It's just a little. Yeah, it's like there's always more you can do with Notion, but you get to a point in ClickUp where you've done it, you're there, you're in. I think you're there now, aren't you, Danny? You're in ClickUp now, you're good. There's no more you need to do.
And it's always
I'm
going to be
struggling right now.
Oh.
Yeah, he still needs to get a new computer, and he's been arguing with me for ages. And is your internet literally tanking? Because it looks
I'm
like
searching. No, I'm just using Google Trends. I just have one other tab open.
Goodness me. Yeesh. Yeah.
I will say that the fact that you don't have to continue to tinker, or the changes that you see on my workspace, like I might tinker with this like every few weeks for like 20, 30 minutes if I'm not testing a new feature.
But we're nerds.
I know. But see, that's what makes it so appropriate, I think, for a mass audience. I would love Notion. I truly believe I would love Notion, just like I love most video games. But I can't game because I will go down a whole rabbit hole and there will go a whole weekend. And I feel like that's a huge difference. And that's the difference between bullet journaling and filling out a calendar. It's the same thing. It's very different.
You literally just summed up my YouTube channel. Going down a rabbit hole. That's literally my YouTube channel. Oh, Notion. This is fun.
Yeah.
And also, I think Danny, we've said this before. Your Notion is never done because that is the hard fact of it. Whereas I have a feeling with ClickUp, there's a point where it becomes done.
I wouldn't say done because they update every week. If they didn't, I would say done. But I think every week you have the opportunity to look at something. And I love that from a process perspective, like continuous improvement. Every week you get this prompt saying, hey, remember that system you're using? Is there a way that you can tighten a screw here? I think you can very quickly get to like 80% complete. Then when you're at 98, you never really get above that.
Yeah, 98. Whereas with Notion, it's like you get to about 70 and then you're just constantly going, oh, there's a little bit more to play with. And there's a little bit more to play with. Oh, I can try this, and I can do that, and I can do this. Oh, wow, there's a new feature. And I think with Notion, it's more of that just to clarify, because Lizzie has just put something there. Like, just because we say that it's fun to play in Notion doesn't mean you're not being productive, because productivity is a whole nother matter. But like in terms of like ClickUp versus Notion, ClickUp it's done so you can go and play with other things, which is pretty much I think how I'm going to be. It's like ClickUp is for me to get my work done, and then I'm going to go and play in Notion and try out a new formula, or I'm going to go play in Notion and try out a new like template for people who are specifically in this kind of niche and in this specific place. Whereas ClickUp is for me to get to be a big boy and get my work done, kind of thing. I'd be adult. Adulting today. Whereas Notion is my playground. It's where I can have a lot of fun. I'm still going to play in ClickUp because it's nerdy and it's interesting, but it's nowhere near to the same extent as you can play in Notion.
And I would also say that playing in Notion, like it's really just processing. And so meditation, like we need that time to process. And the stuff that you saw, like me time blocking outside of ClickUp and bringing it in, like that was play. And then I bring it into ClickUp when I'm kind of feeling pretty good about it. But most of my time in ClickUp, to your point, it's not about structure, which people obsess over for the first month in ClickUp. But the structure, as I said at the beginning, doesn't really matter. And I have it on my screen now, but basically it's SOPs. Like it's content over structure. And that's how I spend, I would say, probably 50+% of my time in ClickUp is just writing documents, just writing procedures, and writing explanations that I then link back to tasks. And this is, I would say, most of my day in ClickUp is writing the actual substance of things and not toying with the structure. Because all of this stuff, I mean, that's not making me any money. That's not growing the business. Having these kinds of things written down, you
just hit it. Money. Absolutely hit it. It's not making you the money. What's the point? And I think people in Notion just like playing, and it can be very easy if you have the mindset, I suppose is the best one. If you have the mindset to know that Notion is if you're using Notion to get stuff done, you're never going to use it to just get stuff done. The kind of people who want to play in Notion want to play. They want to have
process. I'm going to retcon the word play and give it a more positive term, because I feel like that's like play.
I don't see play as a negative, so I think that might just be a mindset thing. But yeah, it's to process and to figure things out and to mess around and enjoy yourself with it. Which I'm a very big purveyor of just having loads of fun and not just sticking to a stupid structure which is arbitrary. I hate arbitrary structures. They annoy me.
So I mean,
Here
I'm
comes
going to bring a couple of words in from undergrad here. Deliberate play, deliberate practice, and then recreational activity. Recreational activity is just like messing around for the sake of messing around. I think when John and I say play, it's deliberate play. We're deliberately experimenting with features of an application, and so I've been trying. This is going to sound bad. I've been trying to find somewhere that ClickUp has a better search volume than another application, and the only one I found is StackBy. Like, everything else, ClickUp is like second. But I'm going to use ClickUp as my kind of like my base. Like, that is there. I can't really change it that much, so I'm going to get stuff done. Then when I want to experiment with different things and deliberately play, mess around, experiment, learn with other apps, I can, because I know it's going to be fixed. Whereas in Notion, if I had that stuff, if I wanted to play around inside of Notion, I then have to look and go, okay, if I add this relation, how does this mess up my current system? If I add this formula in, how am I going to test that this works? And all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of a mindset that I'm going into using ClickUp right now. Is it's going to be a system that I can rely on. I can lean back and go, okay, ClickUp's got my back, but then I can mess around with all the other apps.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I've gone through the period of like tweaking Notion and I want to change things. And when you use and rely upon Notion, it becomes very difficult to play as much and have as much freedom, because yes, you can have play pages, but if you want to experiment with something you might implement into your business, it becomes harder. Whereas ClickUp is just like, yep, I got you. You can play all you like. I saw you had a little play area on your own. It's like, yeah, you can play. Just create a new space. Let's go play. Let's go have some fun. And it will always be there. It's just like you can always go back to what you had before. And then when you implement new things, it's fine. It's kind of like, trusted is your trusted app, the one that if you want to come back to it and just get stuff done, it's there.
And I actually have multiple accounts that I flip between to play in different ways on different account types, because that helps me actually do my work. But I had a good conversation with, I don't know if you know Scale Spark, Susan Bowles, but she's a virtual CFO, but she's a ClickUp geek, and she's wired the same way as all of us here. And she made a point that when she hired her team, or as she's hiring a team, or as she's coordinating with other people, she needed to change how her ClickUp was structured to go from being wired the way her brain was to a business. And I think that's the big transition point. Like, I can remap things all I want, but what I found is that the cost of doing that, it would give me like 1% more productivity, but at the cost of having to retrain all the people who are in the account. And that's where it starts to make sense to have this nice structured shell. And that's what I was showing here, is like the ability to embed and attach things. That's where it all comes together. And so like embedding Notion or embedding my font colors and knowing that I've got one central place that I can change at any time, but the structure is fixed. I feel like this is a good example of how you can just bring it all together, because the structure is fixed.
That's the experience so I recently hired a small team to bring onto my business, and that was so hard because I had to change a lot of things. And even now, because being in Notion up until recently, it's been like just I'm still having to move things around. But the moment I start trying to change stuff, like I have to do this whole upheaval, and it's a lot of like, what's the word? I can't remember the word I'm looking for. Like, it's just heavy work. It's just like really, it's just like, oh, right. Yeah, I know you want me to add in recurring tasks into this so that you can do that. And it's easy. Yeah, I can just copy and paste a formula from Danny's page. But it's still, then I have to go through and make sure all the properties are correct.
Yeah.
Just jump into ClickUp, it's done.
What was that?
Yeah. Which one were you asking?
I couldn't hear Danny, or I thought he said something.
I was just making a joke and saying that Jonathan's an adult, but yeah. It's like crying on stream. Sorry. Okay. I'm reading through a couple of the comments, and this was, oh no, my face has disappeared. We can't have that. You can't have that. It still kind of disappeared anyway, but yeah, processing can cost you money though. Agreed. I mean, I'm going to talk from a YouTuber's perspective right now. When you're making videos on YouTube, you earn nothing. So does that mean that making videos is worth it? Like, directly when you're talking AdSense, you earn nothing until you're actually monetized, and then if you don't have a service or something that you can link to your videos, essentially you're making videos for no reason, but you know there is a potential later on. Like there is a gain later on. So is the upfront work? Is the upfront work worth it? Wow, English, honest, I do speak it. So is that work worth it later on? And Notion, definitely you have to put a lot of work in at the start to get any benefit later on. Whereas ClickUp, there's less of a work because it's already there. Would you agree?
I would say it's, and I think this is the one redeeming quality of templates, is they can help you predict what an outcome would look like and assess what's the benefit. But experimenting always has a cost, especially if you're experimenting with a team. The cost is just a lot higher if you have a team that you have to retrain if you change something. So I think it's a judgment call, and that's why bouncing off of other nerdy people can help.
Exactly. I definitely have it in the back of my mind that going into 2021 and potentially 2022, if I am to hire, or when I do hire, that's probably John's kids of like coming to the room or something. I will mute him to make sure that nothing else happens. There we go. But if in the future someone does like come onto my team or I do hire someone, if they don't know Notion, I would have to teach them Notion, which is a lot of work. ClickUp kind of gives you all the arrows. This is this thing. This is that thing. And I think, obviously, you have more experience with onboarding people into ClickUp, but I think that would be a much cleaner process than with Notion.
I think it depends how you build out your Notion, right? I think it doesn't matter. I think they both could be really hard. When I first was using ClickUp just by myself, my lists and structures were wired the way my brain was, not by some external process. So I think it would have been really hard for someone to join my ClickUp when I first started using it. And I think you could also build Notion in a way that's easier for newcomers to use. I think it's just building this like Leviathan of an understanding where you all have a shared understanding of how things are organized. But I think on the whole, yeah, ClickUp would probably skew easier. But I think they both could be easy if you have it, again, the process, right? If your system is simple and something that person understands, it doesn't matter what tool it is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to like remove him because I didn't like the whole face. He'll be back in a minute. He's just put a message in. Yeah. So when it comes to Notion, when I think, so a lot of the businesses that I've seen that have onboarded people, I don't know whether that's a word. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with it. Their Notion system is very basic, very simple, very fundamental to make the onboarding process easy. And I know, speaking with them as well, when an update comes out or when they decide, actually, I want to add in this thing, if they do want to add something or change something, they have to make a whole thing about it. This is what we've changed. This is how we're going to do it now. These are all the changes to the workflow, etc. In ClickUp, because everything is, you just have the update or you don't have the update, or you have the change or you don't have the change. I feel like it's, I don't know whether cleaner is the right word, but there's less of an interruption, I think.
I would agree with you on the whole. But the stuff that I showed you, like those favorites and that calendar view, only I see those. Those are my favorites. I think that's where it gets a little bit, that's still kind of a gap with ClickUp because the structure is set, which is why we want that to be super simple. The way we slice and dice it with views and favorite things, that can be 100% personal. And that can be kind of a challenge. That's where it has a little bit of that Notion-like flexibility. Because if I were to say, hey guys, just go to the content list, they need to favorite it. They need to change their practice of work to make that work, if that makes sense. So I think there's like two layers. There's your favorites and then there's the actual structure in ClickUp. But both are probably significantly easier than Notion. But at least in Notion, you're all seeing the same thing. Whereas ClickUp's views, that might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah, that's very true. How much of that did you get, John?
I only got the tail end, but I'm intrigued to hear it.
Okay. I was paying attention later, and then I suddenly saw your face pop up again. I was like, "Oh, he's back!" So I wasn't sure how.
I only just got in.
All right, we were just saying that. So this is something I didn't realize. Layla was saying that the favorites in ClickUp don't show on the other person's view. So would that be the same? Yeah, I was going to say. So if you have a favorites bar, if whoever you're working with, no one else is going to see that favorites bar. They're just going to see your list structure. Is that right?
Yes. And all of the views that I have favorited are pulling in every single area, including personal stuff. So they're private. Like even the views, they could not get to my, you know, red dot content. They couldn't get to that view because I have it set to private and have it added to my favorites. But I find that that's really helpful because unless you have a co-owner of the business, there's no reason my team wants to see things the same way I do. I have my content, like you saw the whole month and it's crazy, but that works for me. When my VA comes in to start helping with descriptions or something, she filters it down to just her tasks, group by due date, nothing else. We even put it at everything view. So it works like a simple Asana list. And that is a strength.
The me view.
Me mode, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like when I first discovered that, I was just like, I can press this one button and just see everything on me. Like that made me start to question the idea of having different buckets because it's like, do I really need if I just click me, does that mean it? No, I don't really need to worry about that, do I? Because it'll only show what needs to be done by me. And that's really quite nice.
My pet peeve is when folks go into ClickUp and they create like John's list, Danny's list. And it's like, don't do that. Please just use the horizontal hierarchy first because you can just sort by any of those attributes. Notice I did have a CEO task list, but that's because I wanted a permissions difference for all of those tasks without having to move each one by one. But just to clarify for the viewers, but
that is something that you've just mentioned that I realized experimenting. The inbox, you can't sort, but you can sort the lists.
Which is why
so I was like, yeah, because I was looking at it, I'm like, but I don't want that one down there. I want it up there because the due date was a while ago, but I know I needed to do it. So it was the most urgent thing I needed to do, but it was down the bottom of the list. I'm like, no, I want it the other way. So I was like, no, I can't use this inbox thing. So I'm using the inbox as kind of, I've just been experimenting because I like the hotkeys. I like the fact I can just push keys to bounce around.
Yeah, that's really nice.
I'm not surprised if we get hotkeys for favorites. I have a feeling that's going to come.
I've already. So I've got. This might be really sad, but I've made a note of request features that I need to explore. So I've been exploring ClickUp, and I'm like, I'm not even going to bother looking at that yet because I'm going to go around and then find something else. So I have a list inside the notebook of things I need to look up to see if there's a request feature for it, just so I can push the up button. Oh, yeah. Are you laughing at a comment or me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Always you, Danny. Gail's got a good question. I know you've probably got. I don't know whether that's been said.
No, I don't think so.
Do you think
where are you
ClickUp's
looking?
rigid structure
This one.
appeal to teams and sometimes less appealing to personal users who don't anticipate it? Interesting.
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. But it's again, is that a valid concern? That might be a separate question. Because they do now have a personal mode of ClickUp when you sign up. I just did a video on the onboarding experience, which currently is terrible in ClickUp, but never you mind.
A consistent thing across the board. I've tried so many apps, and every time you go into an app, I'm like, just give me the thing. Just show me. I just want to stop asking me stupid questions.
There are some really, I've had some incredible onboarding experiences lately, and I just finally redid ClickUps, and I was just dying the whole time recording the video. I was like, this is, I had to cut out a lot of stuff of me just saying, this is so dumb. But anyway, they ask you, are you personal or team? And they hide certain features from you, which is their attempt to get over this. I don't think it's an effective way to do it, but I do think that's at least them recognizing this is a real fear.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things for the app teams in general is they see stuff in the communities. I can obviously only speak for Notion really because that's the only community I already know, like well enough. But they sort of go, oh, the community want this thing. We'll talk about it. We'll think about it, and then they'll probably do something like sideways. Like the community want this thing. Let's do something over here instead. And you're like. It kind of solved the problem, but it didn't really. You sort of just put like a bandage over like a cut or something, and it didn't do the job. That's my experience with Notion. I don't know whether John's the same. It looks like he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say ClickUp's got an edge on that one then, because I generally really enjoy, and this is probably because the CEO is a product manager. That really helps, but. I think the actual product ownership and their ability to triage what people want versus what is going to be a meaningful feature has been pretty good. Like their aim, I like how they don't just do what the community wants. They've done a little bit of, Steve Jobsing of telling people what they think they want. They've definitely made some failures along the way because they do a lot of quick wins, which can upset people when they want to see bigger features fixed. But on the whole, in terms of new features, they have a pretty great triage system. Debugging, I don't think there's as much passion behind that in the team.
I mean, that's something that go for it, John.
I think that's a problem with Notion fundamentally. I don't think it could ever be as good as ClickUp's team of like managing updates and adding new features, because if you think about the way that Notion is designed, it's designed to be really open and being able to have multiple ways of doing things. It's like one of the big features that everyone goes on about, apart from the API, of course, is the fact that people have recurring tasks. I don't know how Notion are going to be able to do that if they are even thinking about it.
It's bizarre.
Because it just, I know that's crazy as a ClickUp person. It's like, what do you mean? Why do we need to wait for those? But like, I don't think Notion could implement that effectively. Not because Notion team aren't very good, but because of the whole idea behind the app. Like, it's designed to be incredibly free and flexible. I suppose they could do it in the date property.
How? I go for it. I've gone backwards and forwards with one of the Notion developers. We spoke for 2 hours about how, like, troubleshooting recurring tasks. Every single solution we came up with, there was an issue because of the way Notion is structured with the databases.
Well, if you've already done it with the guys, then no, I'm not going to waste my time. But it was just, I suppose you could. But I just don't think that
it's too flexible for a rigid structure like recurring tasks to happen unless you have it inside the date picker, but you still have the same issue. If it's in the date picker, if you're going to view it in a calendar view, you'd need multiple dates to show, or you'd need multiple pages to be created. If you're going to have multiple dates to show, how is that going to be read? Because it's going to be how many dates would show, and then you've only got one property. You can't show 50 dates in one property line. It's just not possible. And the same thing, if you create that many pages, how does the relation and rollup properties work with those pages? Do you have the same relation? So if you make a page related to another page, but one page is recurring, do you have 50 corresponding relations to that one page? Or 100, or however many recurring tasks? Like, there was just
it becomes
the way
a
that
mess.
it's structured. Yeah, the way Notion's structured with the flexibility doesn't allow recurring tasks very nicely. And if you were to put it in, then you start putting in restrictions and barriers that people don't want.
I wouldn't be surprised if Notion's recurring end up looking a lot like ClickUp's legacy recurring, though, where it's not a beautiful projected recurrence. It's a duplication. That's a recurrence that happens on a schedule. I feel like that's what we saw first in ClickUp, and I've seen that in other tools as well. As kind of the duct tape way to recur. Is that not what's on the docket for Notion?
Sorry, you were asking us if we knew.
I'm just curious if you have any.
That's not what Notion do. They don't tell us everything.
Yeah.
What I would say when it comes to the duplication, like the duplication of tasks or recurring tasks or anything like that, you'd still have that same issue of, if you have set it to recur, say it's a daily task, where is that capped? Because essentially you're going to recreate a page, and a page in Notion is like a page, and there could be loads of data on it if you've got loads of relations. Depending on how big your system is, if you have a recurring task, say it's for a month, you're going to have 30 of those pages duplicated or generated in some way. All of those are then going to have the exact same relations created and rollups created and formulas created and loaded every single time that page is loaded, even if you don't want to see all that stuff, which can obviously challenge the system. And the guy I was talking to, he was like, yeah, our systems just can't manage that, especially if someone wants to do it, I don't know, every week for the next 3 months. It's then going to have to load 2 months in advance. And yeah, I think the speed would drop, and the UI would probably get a bit clunky, and I don't know how it would look, and they're very finicky with how Notion looks. Like, how long did it take them to make the timeline view because it didn't look right? Still salty. Still salty.
Right. Still doesn't look right.
Yeah, I still don't like it either.
No.
It is funny. As soon as the timeline view came out, I was like, yeah, we can now use this for nothing. I don't like it. But then obviously personal preferences. Is there any?
Yeah, Esme just said something. I may have skipped ahead. Sorry if I have. Danny's formula for recurring tasks and Marie
That's
putting
what I was
his templates. Yeah, that's it. That's all you need, which is great, and I think that works enough. It just depends on how important recurring tasks are for in your. Oh no.
I mean, it's kind of along that lines already. I mean, I've got a video coming out with not all the apps, because there are so many effing apps that can be connected to Notion. I'm not even joking. Like, I went into the Reddit community, the Facebook community, on Twitter. I got over 700 different app suggestions just for the Firefox extension alone. Then like Chrome has like 40, Mac's got like 20 something apps you can use. Then you have all the development GitHub stuff. I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And this is without an API. You put API into Notion. Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you. So making it open source. Yeah, bad idea. Which kind of relates back to what we were saying, well, what John and I were saying earlier, with Notion becoming the next kind of WordPress with all the plugins. The amount of apps you can dump into it or on it. The Notion Expander, how many developers are on that at the moment? Well, I say developers. People. It's like 15, 20 people that have nothing to do with Notion, just making stuff for the Notion Expander. I don't think ClickUp has that option. Can you make things to put in ClickUp, or are they just embeds?
The API pretty much is your option. So no, not really. It's very different in that way. I feel like that's also in the task management arena. It just feels different. Like Coda and Notion, I've grouped them together. What's the name? Meet Edgar, is that the one? Meet Edgar and ClickUp. I feel like they're trying to emulate one another, even though ClickUp's much bigger. I think the Edgar one. What?
I've not heard of that one.
I don't think Meet Edgar is the one you're talking about, because Meet Edgar is something to do with scheduling, like emails and stuff.
I always butcher the name of this one. I'll think of the name and I'll post it in a comment or something. But there's a few different modular task management systems, mostly built around personal use, where you can add on, much like Coda, these little apps. And ClickUp's Click Apps attempt to do this within ClickUp itself, but it's not nearly as successful.
That's true. Something that I've just seen. Notion Expander does this. Notion Expander actually does this, but like I say, Notion Expander are third party. They're like outside, so it does cause bugs for some people's Notion. So I'm a Notion purist, which is like, we've got a podcast on it. So I don't use any of them because of the potential risks using other people's stuff inside of Notion has.
And
but
also Notion has a view, which is really, really, really nice. It's got 4 days. So what was it in up? 4-day calendar view, week calendar day. Oh, it's just nice. Sorry. But
yeah. Oh yeah, ClickUp is way better when it comes to views. Just hands down.
Hands down view. To give you the negative, it has map view that always defaults to San Diego. So, I mean, it's not perfect, but the calendar, especially now with the ability to drag tasks that have an estimated time of 2 hours, you drag them onto your calendar and it takes up 2 hours. That kind of stuff, it's really nice.
So I've been experimenting with the workflow view, and I moved the task from one day to another day, and I was like, oh, duh, it's going to move it in the calendar view as well.
Yeah.
What I didn't account for is it also moves, because I've got the Subtasks app thing on, it didn't give me a pop-up when I moved it in the workflow view, and it just moved them automatically. I was like, no. No, I didn't want that, but I didn't realize it moved, and I probably have to fill around with how I'm going to work with that. If I work with that, I don't know. We'll see. But
there's a few things like that when it comes to the other views in terms of the interactions. Whenever I'm doing anything crazy like that, I always go to list view, just because other ones can be temperamental in bizarre ways. So I would go to list view, move it backwards, remap the dependencies backwards or the subtasks backwards, and then move it again in list view and say no. It's kind of weird. There's a few things like that. Like table view will sometimes, if you change a custom field, it'll reset all your other custom fields. Just weird bugs that come with developing a lot of views really quickly. I think at the beginning of this year, there's only like 6 views. I don't know. I have an old views video that I remember looking at and being like, what the heck? It just looks completely different now.
Yeah, I have noticed that unless you really used ClickUp, I don't think you'd notice them. But if you use ClickUp, or if you're like a nerd like us, and you're moving around and playing with all the views and stuff, you start to notice those things, and you sort of go, I might not use this purely for this workflow irritation, friction point, whatever it is. And I've seen a few of those things come up as bugs, but they don't seem to be upvoted. And I think that's because those people that see that are, like, in the Notion world, power users. I don't know whether that's the same term used in ClickUp. Power users of ClickUp will notice those things, and the normal everyday person doesn't.
There are a ton of things like that. And that's where I don't think the debugging cares as much. And I can't blame them, right? They're not getting widespread complaints. They're getting complaints from a few hundred people who find it annoying. And those of us who do that, we just kind of wait and hope eventually it'll get changed because someone inside ClickUp will get annoyed by it. But that's why I think early on, Yvonne, she does Ask Evie. She does some great like weekly release videos on YouTube talking about the newest release on ClickUp. And I don't know if she still does them, but I've always been hesitant to cover new releases of ClickUp at all, because I think I told you earlier, like it's 3 weeks before that feature is something I'd recommend a client to use. You guys get it. Like the support of having to explain to clients that it's broken and I don't know why, it just is, just wait. Like that isn't fun.
I'm sorry. I have a feeling that's basically our lives as Notion consultants.
Why isn't this working? I don't know.
We don't know. We ain't got a clue. Sorry. We'll go and ask them, and then the support team will go, you just do this. We'll just keep going back and forth, try to figure out how to fix it, and we won't be able to. So we just look like we don't know what we're doing when we do.
And then we get on a call with one another and bitch about Notion because it doesn't work sometimes. And then we feel much better after a half-hour bitch.
Same with ClickUp. I mean, it's so true. We have Slack channels where it's just ClickUp consultants, or like even my team will be complaining about things. And I think where it gets helpful is ClickUp support, probably a lot like Notion support, but ClickUp support is new. They are green. I feel like the most senior consultant support rep probably can only be there for 2-3 years. And that would be a small minority of their support reps. So ClickUp support, talk about a major minus to give it a little bit of a leveling off here with our ClickUp conversation. ClickUp support, I do not find it very good or helpful, or they just don't seem to know the program very well. So consultants in our world, I know, because they recommend setup. What?
I love Notion, but their support, Danny, you can test it. I've stopped messaging Notion support.
Does their support do setups?
Does
Does Notion support do setups and coaching? Because ClickUp just started doing, or recently started doing that, and it is.
Yeah, they're called people like us, like official consultants.
ClickUp just started their own in-house using their support reps to help people set up their ClickUp.
Ooh,
it's messy.
Oh, at least Notion have gone, no, we'll get you. So there's an official consultant.
Yeah, we are official consultants, but then they have in-house coaches.
No, we are known as the almost like in-house. We are the vetted. I think the referral is vetted, isn't it, for you? Mm-hmm. But we are like official Notion consultants. The support team will hand off to us as consultants. That I like better. ClickUp, you're not going to be watching this, but take note.
It's really concerning.
Now that I've calmed down a little bit, I've tried to talk to the Notion support team about some of the things I find, and I end up having to teach them what I've done for them to troubleshoot it. And I've never got an answer from the support team. It's always gone, oh, we'll talk to an engineer, a developer. And then like 2 weeks later, they'll come back and say, can you give us a video about what you're doing? And then I'll share a video. And then most of the time I get on a call with them and they say, oh, that's what you're doing. Right. Yeah, no, it doesn't do that. And I know that. That's why I asked if it did it in the first place. That was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And then like a month later, a bug fix will come out. Oh, look, they fixed the bug that I bitched about 2 months ago. But yeah, so the support is nice for, like I say, I think normal like people, not power users. Which
who enjoy it.
Huh?
I think it's for people who are just getting started. I think that's when the support teams are useful. People who are just trying to get started. I'm very intrigued by the in-house consultants. That must have burnt a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't tell us either, which is interesting.
Ooh,
I found out through a prospect who had gotten which I probably shouldn't say this, but hello world, ClickUp, I hope you see this and change your game. They, as an add-on for enterprise, they get coaching. And I think maybe even the higher plan, but I think it's just enterprise. You get coaching with ClickUp, and they suggest how your structure should be set up. And I think it's a few hours, and they just set it up. And they're like, this is how it should be set up.
Oh, no.
I've had several clients come to me after that, and they're like, we don't know why. Once ClickUp tells you to do something, you treat it as gospel, or at least that's what I found in these clients. And so they've taken on basically ClickUp templates that were edited and treat it as gospel that they can't change. They don't understand why it's that way. And it's just it was a strange decision by ClickUp, but I think it was probably driven by sales goals versus support goals, because it's just not I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about this program, and I hope that they rein it in or at least communicate the difference, but it's hard.
I think this is a problem with the productivity app space in general. It's like, do it my way. This is how it works, and just copy what everybody else does and everything's fine. Like when I was exploring ClickUp, I was getting more and more agitated with ClickUp because I was copying what other people were doing, even though I know in the Notion space it's the most stupidest thing to do. But how am I to know that's a stupid thing to do? If I'm coming at it from a beginner, maybe it's just, oh, that's why, because that's the best way of doing it. And then after talking to you, you are exactly the same as I am when I'm teaching Notion. It's like, nah, just do it your way.
And even ClickUp requires you to apply their template to create your account. I just went through the onboarding again. So I was like, wow, they require you. And those templates are, I mean, some of them can be nice, but they're you're diving right in. And I think that's to your point, I think support is very much technical. It's best when it's solving technical problems, but structuring these tools and onboarding a team, sometimes it crosses that line. That's a strategic thing. Yes. And I feel like after, 100 different teams that we work with, you learn something about the right way to structure something for a process that if I just knew the technicalities of the tool, like in many ways, I feel like I would do a more effective job coaching for Notion, just knowing the process side, but knowing nothing about Notion versus a technical person who knows how to build Notion, but has never done the workflow side of things or the systems, which are separate.
Yes.
I like to use the builder analogy. I like to use a builder's analogy. Essentially, like whatever app you're using, it's a tool. And if you don't know how to use the tool, it's useless. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you get a child with a hammer, guaranteed they'll hit themselves. That's not productive. That's not useful. And I feel like a lot of people like using, I mean, I did that as a kid. I don't know about you, but when I had a hammer, I'd like, yeah, stupid. Same with the screw. You're like, does this hurt? How much can I push this? That was me. That was me as a child exploring. And I feel like a lot of people, when they have new apps, they're kind of the same thing. They build loads of stuff and they don't realize it's hurting them until they actually need to do something. And when I first went onto ClickUp, I saw it and I was like, this is a lot of stuff. And I just ignored it. It sort of just, I made my own thing, started building stuff, had a look at the space, and I was like, why have you done it like this? And I still don't really understand why they did it like that, but
can I build on your building metaphor? Because I think that's a really good one. We were renovating our house. We're always renovating our house. It feels like we're trying to sell, but it's this never-ending process. And so we rented a boom lift. And if you know what a boom lift is, like the thing that goes up and over, that kind of thing. And I was in charge of using the boom lift to paint the house, which is fun project. And when I was looking up the boom lift, there was instructions on the actual machine itself. And it was telling me the safety instructions. Don't let it tip. If it tips, here's the button it does and all this stuff. And then I went on YouTube and I listened to people who use boom lifts every day. And those are the people I listen to for how to use the tool. Because the manufacturer will tell me the way to use this piece of machinery to make sure the machine is happy. But it's the user, the builder on the YouTube channel, that some guy in Tennessee that actually instructed me as to how to use the boom lift correctly. And I feel like that's the same thing with productivity tools.
Absolutely.
Spot on.
I love it. That was beautiful.
I feel like that's a great way to finish as well. Just like cut. That's my. Actually, do we show that on the podcast? I know I do that like right at the beginning. Anyway.
No.
Right,
you're the one who edits the video, so you can add it into one. So
I don't
get
even
a clapper
know.
Sound.
when I'm making the videos for the podcast, I just cut off the first bit. I skip through bits. I'm like, is there anything we've said that I shouldn't put in? If there is, I get rid of it. And I was just like, there you go, put up, get it done. The audio is the main thing. Right. So I think like this has been 2 hours. It's about average for us. We won't go too long because obviously I imagine it's middle of your day, isn't it? So you probably have stuff to do.
It's Sunday, so I should probably be painting the inside of this house.
Using those tools.
No boom lifts inside.
Ah.
Do you wanna leave everyone with a place that they can go find you? Obviously, I think I have your YouTube channel linked in the description. Yes. If I don't, I will do that afterwards. I do. Yes, I did. I did the YouTube thing. Is that the best place to find you?
Most likely. And if you're a Facebook user, I have a free Facebook group. It's kind of one or the other, depending on where you like to hang out.
Awesome. Thanks. So next week, we don't have a topic. So Jon and I are going to talk now about what we're going to talk about next week. But we will be same place, same time next week on the same channel. So thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Layla, again, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. And I'll see you guys, all next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.